You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast. We've got a long-standing but infrequent segment returning for this episode. Cricket news, where we go through all the little bits of news that have happened in cricket and pass judgment on them. We've got a fair amount to get through, so we'll get into it pretty much straight away. But just a quick reminder to like and subscribe to the Cricket Pod wherever you listen or watch. Do that right now. While I'm talking, you should have enough time to get your phone out or get on your laptop, head over to whatever browser this is running on, and give us a like or a review. Stick a review down. We'd like one of those as well. Yeah. And if you want to support us directly, patreon.com/the cricket pod is where you can do that. That's linked in the show notes, or you can type that into your URL, patreon.com/the cricket pod. Max, we'll start with New Zealand and Australia. We'll segue into cricket news by taking a left turn at Test cricket. That doesn't make any sense. I don't even know what that was as a segue. New Zealand, though, they lost, didn't they? That was bad.
They did. They did lose. That was bad. It wasn't as bad as the first 25 overs of the match, though, because that was some of the most boring cricket.
Oh my God!
You're ever going to see. Smith and Khawaja just, well, I mean, they didn't get out, so they did that bit quite well, but it was a struggle to watch. I have to admit. Fortunately, for everyone else, Cameron Green did some stuff, and it's not a great sign, is it, when you cough up 383 runs in the first innings and the second top scorer is extras with 41. You have to question what's gone on there. But that's the reality of the situation New Zealand found themselves in, and then very quickly found themselves quite far behind the game at 29 for 5 in their first innings. And yet they almost had a sniff, didn't they, in there? And there was a chase of 300 odd that 369 in the fourth innings, and they got off. They ended the day quite nicely set, 100 odd for 3. You're thinking maybe there's a sniff, but no, they very quickly lost 2 wickets and 3 wickets, and that was that really. Australia once again proving to be dominant at home, but yeah, it was like another one of those games where it's quite a big defeat for New Zealand. But at times, it was like some quite close cricket. Like they were on top of Australia in that first session. So maybe you should just give a lot of credit to Smith and Khawaja for sticking it out in the way they did, even if it was really boring. But
I don't know. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Cameron Green. When the 9th wicket falls, Australia are on 267. When the final wicket falls, they're on 383.
That's a hell of a partnership.
And Hazelwood has scored 20 of those runs.
Yeah. Which is about 20 more than I thought he'd get.
Yeah, I mean, he was actually playing some shots, Hazelwood. It wasn't...
Didn't know he had it in.
He was full on rope-a-dope for a while, and then he started to have a little bit of fun. It was, I mean, like it's basically an astonishing innings from Cameron Green. It's really, really hard to do with the tail-ender, to bat for that long, coach them through it, farm the strike really, really well, and to cash in when you get the chance as well by hitting quite a lot of boundaries, 23 fours, 5 sixes.
And it's all down to Steve Smith moving up the order.
Is it though? I don't really know if it is. I think Australia. I mean, the story of the first day is that they were actually in quite a lot of trouble. They weren't going anywhere. 88 for 3 after 40 overs, 89 for 4 after 41 overs. I probably should have started there. It's only when Mitch Marsh comes in and starts to press the accelerator a little bit, 40 off 39.
Wait, so he's only in the side because Steve Smith moved up the order to open. So
is that what's going
on?
It's all
Steve Smith.
If we're talking about the Steve Smith opening project, I don't necessarily hate the idea if you want to accommodate Mitch Marsh in the team. And Mitch Marsh has been playing really good cricket for the last year, so I can see why Australia might want Mitch Marsh in the team. Like for the team, Steve Smith opening instead of Cameron Bancroft or whoever the next guy is. I think it is Bancroft again, isn't it? Because he had quite a good Sheffield Shield summer. I'd rather have Steve Smith trying opening than Cameron Bancroft and Mitch Marsh at 6 if I were an Australian. Will it have a detrimental effect on Steve Smith's batting average? Almost certainly, you would think. But the team as a whole might be better off. And it's also worth remembering that Steve Smith has tailed off. He's still playing very good cricket, still scoring a lot of runs, but it's not. He at one point in his career he was averaging 65. He's not averaging 65 anymore. Like this version of Steve Smith is a much diminished version of Steve Smith.
It's still up there.
I know. I'm not saying. Yeah, but relative to Steve Smith, it's not like if Steve Smith went back to 4, he would average 65. He wouldn't. We know that. We've seen him not average 65 for quite a long time now. Years, like literally years. So, factor that in. I think it's. I do think it's an interesting decision by him, though. I mean, like he is one of. I mean, we were talking about Bairstow earlier. Steve Smith is like same wavelength, I would say. Not the same talent level, obviously, but like a similarly kind of weird guy.
Yeah,
a cricketing rogue. And I think it is a really interesting call when you've got number 4, which
number 4 is the best gig, isn't it? Best
gig,
cricket, right?
To just be like, I'm going to go and open the batting. Never really done it before, but I'm gonna go out there and back myself. So it's a really fascinating decision that he's made there, and kind of a fascinating narrative that's playing out as well. I don't know if it's working that well, but like I say, is he better than whoever else they pick?
But
yeah, I mean,
time will tell.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else from a New Zealand point of view. I mean, like it's just amazing how crap they are against Australia. Really, it was sort of like it went really well for them, and then at some point, probably when Nathan Lyon is out, that 269 for 9 moment or 267 for 9 moment, everything just started going wrong. Like Cameron Green is belting them all over the place. Hazelwood turns into Brian Lara. Then they come out to bat. It seemed like a reasonable pitch to bat on at this point in time. I mean, like you just seen the 10th wicket put on 120, and they are 12 for 3 with a run out, a calamitous run out.
And what a run out it was!
Yeah, with like the opener running into their best batter halfway down the pitch, and a direct hit. Basically a completely unnecessary direct hit as well, pulled off to bring the run out. I don't really know what to make of that all. And then Rachin Ravindra out 3 balls later, the wonderkind. Why are New Zealand so crap against Australia? I think that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to. I mean, you can't. A side can have the psychological edge, can't they? But I mean, this is getting silly now. Like, there's not. I think there is a gulf in class, isn't there? Like, Australia are probably the better side on paper, but it's in New Zealand. Like they've got a home advantage. They've not got a bad side, and it's almost like they don't want to. It's like New Zealand thrive on being the nice guys who people don't suspect, and if they go and beat Australia, suddenly that whole aura changes, and people might start thinking of New Zealand as, a serious force in world cricket, and that's not good for them. That's not where they want to be. They want to be an understated side that comes up on the outside, and everyone goes, "Oh, wait a minute, New Zealand are good again." We forgot about New Zealand, but they're always there. We just forget that they're there. Maybe that's it. Maybe that it's all part of the wider narrative of what they're trying to portray themselves as a cricket side, and having Australia being overbearing really suits them from that point of view. So it's deliberate. That's my theory.
It is getting silly though, I'm afraid. One win in 24 tests this century. That's a lot of tests. You'd think you'd be able to get, like, even England wouldn't. Well, I don't know.
Steady on.
It's It's just slightly perplexing, isn't it? Steve Smith took a good catch as well in that match. That's the only other thing that I can remember. Good left hand.
Glenn Phillips took a 5 for wicketkeeper batter. Glenn
That
Phillips
was
now
that was
stunning
weird.
off spinner.
Weird test match. And I don't think this had happened before the last show, so we should probably mention it. Neil Wagner retired, which is
Yes.
a shame. Do you want to say anything nice about Neil Wagner? We'll take one last break and then come back for some wrap up stuff.
He is the very definition of a workhorse. He had a role and he ploughed that role. He ploughed that field and he did it so well. And I don't know how you can get up every morning to just run up and throw the ball down halfway with as much, vigor as Neil Wagner. Neil Wagner did. Like he fulfilled a vital role for New Zealand. It wasn't necessarily pretty, but it was very effective. And you have to give the guy a lot of credit. And obviously, took the wicket to end one of the greatest Test matches of all time when he got Jimmy Anderson down the leg side. So I mean, that's an iconic moment for him as well to have in his locker.
That was especially good because he looked completely busted as a player in that Test match earlier in the match. Like he looked like an old man bowling 60-mile-an-hour half trackers, which is basically what he was. And then he sort of found another gear in the run chase to just go on an immense tear. I mean, like he's one of the most unique bowlers of his generation, isn't he? Like the whole thing, the whole package. Like not a tall guy, not a quick guy. What does he decide to do? Bowl bouncers, just bouncers.
You gotta really love what you do, don't you? You gotta really love it.
How many bounces are you going to bowl? Probably 5
all of
them. Endlessly as well. It would be like 10 over spells of Neil Wagner just banging it in with 2 guys on the hook, someone there for the fend, a gully, no slips, the occasional Yorker to keep people on their toes, short leg in, obviously, plugging away. And it worked. It worked really, 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 really well. And they won the World Test Championship off the back, at least in part of what he was doing. So, yeah, awesome player. Max, we're going to take a really quick break and then we will come back with some odds and sorts.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast for the 4th part of this episode. Max, we're going to kick off with the WPL. How have you been? Last year, this was a big tournament. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't a big tournament now, but from the perspective of the global cricket eye, there felt like there was a lot more focus on it. This year, we've got India, England on at the same time, the PSL on at the same time. We've got Australia taking on New Zealand, which is as Test series go, actually a relatively big. Yeah. Ireland have just won their first Test. There's a lot of cricket, and probably our attention has been elsewhere. But have you managed to sort of catch up with what's been going on?
I've had like you say, a passing look at the WPL, but I think it's a bit frustrating, isn't it? Like it's been a bit of a I don't know, been beholden to the schedule, like you say. I think did it happen on the back of the IPL last year?
I can't remember. No, I think it was the same time slot, but other things have moved around.
And it was new and fresh, and there was a lot of money and a lot of press involved in it. But the same teams were up there again. Delhi Capitals and Mumbai Indians were the finalists, weren't they, last time out, and they're topping the group. And RCB, maybe they could finally win something in the WPL with the IPL, because if Ellyse Perry smashes any more car windows, things could be looking up.
I mean, that would be a mega story, wouldn't it? If RCB women's team were to win this tournament, and like so far,
2 years of trying, RCB 2 years later, no luck.
The main story so far has been Ellyse Perry smashing the Tata rear window. I think that's the thing that's generated the most cut through, which was an awesome moment, and thanks to those people on Twitter who pointed it out to us. I think it's one of those tournaments as well. Like if you look through the results, a lot of these franchise comps and you kind of, in a sense, have to lump this in. I know it's the biggest women's tournament, and so it has its own cachet in a way, but it is on the circuit of franchise tournaments also just another franchise tournament. And I think one thing that really helps with cut through on that front is if there are close games. And looking at the tournament so far, it kicked off with an absolute gangbusters of a match. The Capitals v the Indians, two best teams, one off the last ball. And then I think the night after that, there was a close game as well. And then since then, games have been ending sort of 2 overs early or with 30-run margins of victory. And it's hard to generate the buzz in the same way. Obviously, a lot of cricket to be played, so I'm sure that there will be matches that do catch our interest. And when England v India wraps up this weekend, it's timed quite nicely. People will start to tune into that a little bit more. I'm sure we'll pick it up, and we'll head into playoff season for that before the IPL starts. So, it will be a thing to focus on. The only thing I had to say on that front was that it's been quite a good year for New Zealand cricketers in that tournament. We've got New Zealand cricketers in the top 3 for wickets and runs. So good work there, New Zealand. Well done. Max, Ireland. This is the next thing. Ireland won. They've won a test match for the first time. It's a momentous moment, isn't it? And they did nearly bottle it as well. So well done, Ireland, on pulling it off. Can you talk through what happened?
Yeah, so I mean, it was a bit nip and tuck. They bowled Afghanistan out for 155 in the first innings and were pretty well set in the second innings. They ended up with 263, so a solid lead. Afghanistan came back into it a bit, but a fairly comfortable looking chase of 111, even though it was a fairly low scoring game. But it looked like Ireland had it pretty much in the bag. And then they were 39 for 4. And you were like, oh no, they're not, are they? But they didn't. A captain's knock from Andy Barberni saw them home, 6-wicket win. And yeah, I mean, it's big because, I mean, not only was it a win, but it was a win overseas, wasn't it? It wasn't. Was it in Abu Dhabi? So
yeah,
overseas conditions as well. So to win, not only win your first test match, but to do it outside of Ireland is a big achievement. I think there's been some comparisons made about the number of tests it's taken other new test members to win their first game, and they're probably not quite fair comparisons, because that would have been people like India and New Zealand joining the test fray and having to play Australia and England 15 times before they managed to win a game, whereas Ireland do at least have the opportunity to play Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, etc., who are closer to their level, and they gave a good account of themselves in a few games against Sri Lanka not long ago, but couldn't get over the line. So nice for them to get over the line here. It's tough, isn't it, for Ireland, like developing that next level. Hard to get the red ball game going. There's been a lot of focus on white ball because of all the white ball World Cups that there have been, and obviously there's kind of the not an irony, but it's kind of unfortunate that in moving to full test member status, you then lose the ability for most of your players to play red ball cricket in county cricket in England, which is what they've been doing as an associate nation, because then they count as an overseas player, and suddenly you're like, well, I don't want to spend an overseas slot on Paul Sterling or Mark Adair, actually. So now you have to go and have your own first class status, and you almost lose quality in terms of the red ball stuff after having made the step up. So it's kind of a poison chalice, I suppose, from that point of view. But nice to get the win, and hopefully onwards and upwards.
Yeah, I think that they right now they should focus on the achievement of getting that first win. As a pretty slightly diminished Afghan side, with obviously no Rashid Khan, but also a few of the other big names not available as well. But you still got to beat them, and Ireland did that. Someone asked, Chak asked on Twitter, why do Ireland not compete in the World Test Championship? And that's basically because they weren't invited and there's not really a route in as well, which is another structural issue for cricket, and there's not really that much effort that goes into developing a second tier of Test cricket either.
No,
So,
a promotion relegation thing for the World Test Championship would potentially make some sense, wouldn't it?
yeah, or even like a regular set of fixtures with Zimbabwe and Afghanistan, and
like the ODI Cricket League thing.
Why not get the Netherlands and Scotland in or something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know. West Indies, maybe.
Hey, now.
I know. Well, I know why, because there's no money to do it. But
yes, yeah. It would have to be funded by the ICC,
and
they're not going to do that.
Yeah. Max, in the PSL, there's been some stuff happening too. This is another tournament that has been going on. There were some close games in this one. It's actually. I mean, the PSL is actually a pretty good watch overall. If only to see some of the players that Pakistan could be playing instead of the ones they actually do pick. There's this guy, Mohammed Harris, playing in the PSL, and if he was playing for any other nation, he'd be the first name on the T20 team sheet. They barely pick him. It's absolutely bonkers. Interestingly, as well, and this shows the sort of fickle nature of T20, and there's been quite a changeover in players among the overseas players in the PSL, and I think this has had an impact on this story in particular. Lahore Qalandars, who won the tournament last year, have been awful. I think they topped the group and then won the final in 2023. They have 1 point from 7 matches this year, and that was thanks to a rain off. So that's the main
Welsh
thing
fire form.
That's the main thing that's been happening. Obviously, they're captained by Shaheen Afridi, so it's it's looking a little bit miserable for them. I don't know if you can blame Shaheen for it, but it is kind of funny that they promoted him to T20 captain, and then immediately his PSL franchise has completely fallen apart. Like
he's done the reverse dog.
Yeah, you do wonder whether he'll actually be the skipper for them at the World Cup. Babar Azam has scored some runs. He got a ton the other day, and that's what you need to know.
He's been doing it at a strike rate of over 150.
Yeah, but they are playing some of these games on the roadiest roads that have ever roaded. Like it's definitely, I think, a high run environment, the PSL, or certain venues at the PSL. So when you see some of the scores, do factor that in. But,
take it with a pinch of salt.
It's worth sticking on. The only problem with the PSL, I think, is that it's on too early in the day. IPL gets it kind of right. 3 p.m. kickoff. They take forever. That means you can in the UK you can finish work at half time, watch the whole second innings, which is the good one in T20 cricket anyway, and get a feel for the whole game and see all the players. PSL, it's an hour earlier, and it makes it a little bit of a challenge. Max, last point to talk about is an IPL point, and then we've got one question actually. Pat Cummins has been named as the captain for the Sunrisers Hyderabad for this season. We'll be doing, if you've only just started following the cricket podcast, we do big IPL coverage, so we'll be doing previews and giving in-depth thoughts, all of this stuff. But this is a big story from the IPL, and what's your instant reaction?
My instant reaction is great shout. Like Pat Cummins, he's made Australia great again. He's solved climate change. He's made Australia nice again. He's made Australia win everything. He's a genius. And if you've signed that genius for 20 crore, you might as well make him your captain as well. The other issue they had last year, Aidan Markram as captain, kind of meant they couldn't drop him, even when he wasn't very good. And they have a lot of players who do what Aidan Markram does in that side, Sunrisers. I mean, what have they got? Glenn Phillips, Harriet Carson, Aidan Markram, all, vying for not 3 spots, basically, because they also have Hasaranga and Patrick Cummins. So shift the captaincy to Pat Cummins means you've got a lot more flexibility with the selection. You spent that much money on the guy. You're going to play him. He's an elite player. I think it makes a lot of sense from a team structure point of view.
They've also got to try and get Travis Head in the team somehow.
I forgot Travis Head. Travis Head Glenn Phillips, Heinrich Klaassen, and Aidan Markram. You can't be making one of them captain, and unless it's Heinrich Klaassen, because obviously he has to play every single game.
Yeah, I personally, I can definitely see it going wrong, but it's not the dumbest decision anyone will ever make. The problem is, and if you're kind of new to the IPL, the big brain move is to make an Indian captain.
Yeah, that's the ideal situation, isn't it? But if your team's a bit crap,
this is kind of the problem. This is kind of the problem with Sunrisers Hyderabad. Their banker Indian players, like who would definitely play, are also fairly injury prone. So it's not an absolute certainty that they would play every game. And if you want continuity with Indian captain, I don't know if you necessarily need that. Then you probably have to pick an overseas player, and then if they play badly, you're screwed. So we know what will happen with Sunrisers Hyderabad this year, I reckon, Max.
They're going to win it.
We'll be going at 12 and over and cost them the tournament.
No, they're going to win it.
Last question, and we should have done this earlier. This is really the big news. Will there be an Ollie Robinson cameo? Says Deep T. Max, have you been following Ollie Robinson's social media career?
I listened to a clip, or at least like the first minute of a bit that he was doing where they were like answering sports trivia. I couldn't cope. I had to stop. I couldn't handle it, I'm afraid. I didn't have the stamina.
You have to find this. Like, if you're find the Cricket Podcast and like and subscribe on all the different platforms. But then the second thing you should do is go to YouTube and find Ollie Robinson and his girlfriend talking about the Duckworth Lewis Stern and who they are and how it was worked out and what it's for. It is one of the most unintentionally hilarious clips you've ever seen, and I'll plug the whole show as well. Like, go on YouTube and watch these people talking to each other. It's like surreal comedy. I think that's the best way to put it. Like, it's not. You couldn't write a TV program that funny. It's like two Coen brothers characters have started a podcast. Brilliant. I mean, like, properly brilliant. The guy. Look, when Bairstow goes, I hope Ollie Robinson is still about. Like, I think you need a couple of just complete rogues in cricket. Otherwise, they're not interesting. Cricket is only interesting because of characters who are baffling. I mean, that's
just like snooker. Without Ronnie O'Sullivan, snooker is dead.
It is a little bit like that. Like, if Ashwin wasn't as intense, cricket wouldn't be as good. If Ollie Robinson wasn't as weird, cricket wouldn't be as good. If Johnny Bairstow didn't look a bit like a psychopath, cricket fundamentally, it wouldn't be as good. You need Steve Smith getting stuck in an elevator and asking for a handful of M&Ms. You need this sort of thing. Otherwise, the whole game will dry up and go away. So check out Ollie Robinson. Enjoy it before the ECB crack down on it, is what I would say. You're not getting this in any other sport. In any normal sport, this wouldn't be permitted. But all the videos are still up now. Download them, keep them. It's part of cricket heritage. Max, I think that's it for the podcast this week. Any final words from you?
Bring on Dharamshala, 3-2. Let's go.
Yes. Okay. All right. 4-1.
Yeah.
Goodbye.